Hello, everyone. Jodie, listeners, Teddy. We've got Teddy back in the studio.
I'm sorry, everyone.
Don't apologise. He's a great addition. He's currently having a little
Moment.
zoomies.
He's having some Zoom.
He's having some zoomies.
He's trying to eat the fake plant.
Have you ever seen the thing of Dennis, the dog?
No.
I've never related to something more in my life.
Dennis the dog. Is that an Instagram account?
No, it's I don't know. It's Dennis the zoomie on the bed. So it's a dog, right, who has got the ultimate zoomies, but it's on the owner's bed.
Oh gosh.
But I feel like I am
zoomies.
Dennis.
You have the zoomies.
Ready? I'm sorry, this isn't very like podcast friendly, but if you look, this is Dennis. Look.
Oh, poor Dennis. He's basically jumping up and down and up and down. And his hair's so distressed and distraggled.
He just wants to play.
Oh, bless him. Is that what you're like?
Yeah, I get very Dennis. Listen to the commotion. Can you hear that?
My goodness. Yeah, Teddy can be like that.
So I understand it. So Teddy's
you empathise.
Man, I get the zoomies.
I get cross about it. And also, we went to Starbucks. We're in Canary Wharf recording this pod, and he's never been to Canary Wharf. Canary Wharf is not that dog friendly.
It's not.
A lot of people in suits were huffing at us. And then we went into Starbucks and they gave him a puppuccino. Who even knew? I mean, I've seen it, but we've never had one. And it was basically a giant cup of cream, which he ate all, and it was all over his face. And then he walked up to the window in Starbucks and put his head with all cream on the glass window. Brilliant. And everyone was just like, what is this trash doing in Canary Wharf?
Get this out of my...
So if he starts honking up in a bit, that's why, guys. Okay. Hi.
He's here. He's part of the team.
Yeah.
You know, we love him.
We empathise with a range of emotions on this podcast. So
we do. And I definitely empathise with the zoomies because I get them.
That's a manifestation of anxiety.
Is it?
Yeah, it can be. I've got this. So anxiety can manifest in loads of different ways. Sorry. I'm Jodie, by the way. I'm a therapist. I'm the founder of Self Space. Welcome to our podcast. I'm okay, really.
Yeah.
We're obviously not doing that well today, but just in terms of how anxiety manifests, it can be like a physical thing as well. Like we often associate it with like, you know, at the one end of the spectrum, which is like, this is so overwhelming, I can't cope. Yeah. But anxiety is also really motivating because it can make us kind of move, and it manifests in weird ways. So the zoomies might be one of them, which is like a release of energy. Yeah. My son used to have this brilliant one. I mean, it was awful. It was so bizarre. But he'd come home from school and he'd seem fine. Like he'd be a little bit jumpy. Yeah. And obviously been holding it in all day. And then he'd just start going, ping pong ball, ping pong ball, ping pong ball. And I'd be going, Elvis, what are you doing? Ping pong ball. Like with the intonation as well, like up ping pong ball. Ping pong ball to say, and he needed to say it like 100 times.
Is that a bit Tourette'sy?
We're not allowed to say a bit something, are we?
Oh God, what have I done there?
You're all right, but we're not allowed to say a bit OCD or a bit Tourette'sy. Tourette's, you can see how Tourette's might manifest, right? Because
wait, why can't we say a bit?
Well, it's not that PC because you can't really be a bit autistic, or you can't really be a bit. Okay. It kind of casualizes it a bit.
Educating.
But there's something of that in there, right? It's a manifestation of something which needs just to be let out.
Yeah.
To get out. And I got it. I was like, just let's do ping pong ball as loud as we can, as stupid as we can. Let's just get it out. That was after a period of going, can you please stop doing that? And then I was just like, that isn't going to work.
Yeah. I get like these like, you know, when like, I don't know if you ever owned a cat, but like
Never.
Sometimes your cat will just like for half an hour just ping around the house.
Yeah.
Like off the sofa, off the wall, off the floor. I get those spurts of energy.
Yeah.
And I'm like in bed, just. Like,
is it as well if you don't do exercise and you've been sat down all day, or is it nothing to do with that?
Maybe. I have a friend that sets it off in me and I set it off in him. So it's like a night. If we get together and we're,
You're
I'm bloody
basically
40.
you're ping pong balling all over the place.
Yeah. And he's just like, he gets it and I get it. And we just get in this kind of like
Hilarious, kind of hysterical
zoomies.
Isn't it amazing though when you do get a bit hysterical about something, because we don't do it very much, particularly as adults, do we?
Honestly, when I laugh to the point of tears and I can't physically stop laughing and it's hurting everything to laugh, that happens. So rare.
Yeah, it's so amazing.
So rare.
And then once you start, you just can't stop.
I cannot physically stop myself.
But do you know
if I start to go.
I think there's something magical. Like, we were doing some work in a group the other day, like therapy work, and one of the games was do a sound and a gesture and then everyone mirrors it back, and someone went and started laughing, and so we all had to like mirror it back, and it was like it was contagious. Then I was like, oh no, I really can't stop laughing now. And then everyone was just like and it was this bizarre, and I thought, God, we don't do that enough. We don't catch energy that's positive. We often catch kind of difficult moods, but we don't.
I think we'd get it more if we put our phones away. Like,
joy.
If we like hung out, like I used to get it with my pals. Like, obviously, I grew up. None of us had phones for a bit, and it would happen more. I mean, that might be because we were younger, but it would happen on the podcast I used to do, because there's no phones. You're sitting there on your phone. You just sit. I used to do a podcast with 4 friends, and a lot of times we'd just
be giggling.
All up. Yeah. We'd have to stop, or not stop, but edit it out, because we just couldn't carry on. And I think that's got to do with sort of like sitting, facing each other, talking.
Yeah, human connection.
Funny things come out.
Human connection. But we were going to talk. It's interesting that we started with a bit Tourette'sy, because we were going to talk a little bit about diagnosis.
I feel awful about that now.
No, it's fine. And I think it's something that's become so normalised, this idea of.
Yeah.
And we were going to talk a little bit about, diagnosis and what that does.
Yeah.
But I think these mental health words are thrown around quite a lot nowadays. Like,
have you noticed an increase
100%.
in the words being used? Self-diagnosing,
labeling, they're people pleasing, I'm an introvert, they're gaslighting, she's a narcissist, whatever the thing is that's the kind of buzzword. I'm anxious, I understand it, and in a way it's a real positive, because it means that there's much more language around this stuff than there ever has been before. But I'm also, particularly in self space as well, we're quite resistant to labeling too heavily.
Right.
And the reason that I feel resistant to it is I think a diagnosis can be incredibly helpful, because I think depending on what you're struggling with, it can give you somewhere solid to land in waters that feel choppy and overwhelming. It can orientate you towards a relief, which is, I find myself in that diagnosis. That's me.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of it, I think it can be incredibly limiting, because if we class ourselves, if we read something and we go, okay, I'm definitely a people pleaser, or I'm an introvert, or whatever it is, then we identify with that label, and it stops us doing any of the actual work, which is why.
Yeah.
We just go, I find some comfort in the fact that, there's loads of other people talking about people pleasing.
Yeah.
That's what I am.
Yeah.
But it doesn't encourage us into any question or curiosity about why. It gives us a quick exit.
Yeah.
I am that. Or this relationship didn't work because he's a narcissist.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just going to load all of the responsibility of this situation onto a diagnosis that might not even be accurate, but because I understand some of those traits.
Yeah. See, what I've noticed is, it's hard, right? So 50% really pleased that people are talking about mental health issues.
It's
really
great.
Pleased that people know these terms. People really pleased that people can identify with them or identify them in other people.
Yeah.
Conversation has started, etc., etc. But there is a part of me, a sort of skeptic part, that is like, what's the percentage? And it's dangerous, right? So it's like, what's the percentage of this being a reality, or are you just using this to get out of something?
So more like a kind of an excuse.
As using it as an excuse.
Yeah. So in terms of whether it's used as an excuse or a reason, and I feel nervous to say this because I don't want there to be a kind of kickback on it. I think we have to be careful about anything that we don't lean into it too much as a reason to let ourselves not to do things and not challenge ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so we work with businesses to support their employees. And, you know, I always say, we hold that very fine line, which is we are deeply empathic about what people and humans are going through, but we also understand that the employer needs the person to do the job. I don't think we should use it as an excuse. I think it's very okay to say, I am not doing well and I'm really struggling and this is what I'm feeling and this is how it's going to impact on our relationship or my work. What should we do about that?
Yeah.
As opposed to allowing yourself not to take action. When we collude too much with or identify too much with a diagnosis, it might mean that we don't start to take action. So we can just sink into the idea that I have this or I am that, and then let it be. And I think what we need to do is, if that's what we're doing, we need to use that to motivate us into action.
Because I thought that about the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, I was like, I bet there's shitloads of people who are loving this. Like, people with social anxiety, people who didn't want to do things, you know, like people that now meant that work event or that wedding was cancelled. Like, I reckon loads of people were just like,
loved it.
Wait, I can just sit. I have an excuse now.
That's legitimate.
To not attend things, to sit at home and, you know, be antisocial almost.
And maybe there's nothing wrong with that, I don't think. There's nothing wrong with knowing that, you know, maybe all of the things that the world pushes us towards doesn't suit you that well.
Yeah.
That might be a bit different than thinking, okay, I'm going to diagnose myself as ADHD, whether you have a professional diagnosis or not. And then identifying fully with that diagnosis. So rather than thinking, you know, I think we need to take the diagnosis into action. So it's like, what can I do to support myself a bit more? And I think we shouldn't use diagnosis and self-diagnose. I don't think it's helpful at all, honestly.
I don't think it is either.
I think we can go down a path that's probably not that helpful, but better to get into therapy and dig around in what's actually happening.
Because in my experience, when you're on that sort of Dr. Google self-diagnosis train, it's like star signs.
Yeah.
It's it's
a bit woo-woo.
Like, they can all apply to me.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think we look for orientation in it, don't we? When we're struggling, we look for hope anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because we did a bit of research on this, and one of the biggest searches is around heartbreak. What do I do? I feel heartbroken, and what do I do?
Yeah.
And listen, whatever it takes to give you, if you find some solace in reading other people's stories, other people's ways in which they coped with it, that's really, really good.
Yeah.
But don't let it get you stuck.
Yeah.
Don't let it get you stuck there. Is what I think.
And being like, oh well, there's nothing to.
I'm
be done
heartbroken, so I'm not going to go out, or
being like, oh, I can't do this because I'm ADHD, or I can't do this because I have anxiety.
Exactly. So I think if we can use it not to limit ourselves too much, and also use it as a bit of a sign, which is when we go to Google something about, you know, our mental health, there's a massive sign there, which is curiosity, and that's a great thing.
Yeah.
But let's be curious about why.
Yeah.
Why am I feeling this?
Yeah.
So it's not a bad thing. It's also a sign that your psyche is looking to grip onto something.
Yeah.
How can I orientate myself? I'm out of my depth.
And what's like a healthier thing to do? Well,
I think for me, it's something about trying to put some words to what's actually going on for you. So talk to somebody else. Like, this is what I feel rather than I am. I think
Okay.
I am ADHD. You're not, but maybe you struggle with that.
Right.
No one is anything
Yeah.
just that solely.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing that's really useful is to kind of come into contact with the feeling, which might be I'm overwhelmed. I'm not doing well at the moment with big groups, or I find going to work really hard, being on the tube. Talk about the things that are actually happening rather than pigeonholing yourself into a label. That's the first thing I do. Therapy isn't always an amazing place to just go, listen, I'm struggling with this.
Yeah.
Rather than I think I'm on the spectrum or whatever, which you very well might be.
Yeah.
You very well might be.
And do you think people kind of want to be? Because it
gives them a kind of...
or explains certain things.
It's a difficult one to say. I think that it can give us some hope when we know for sure.
Yeah.
Also, the other side of it is when we do receive a professional diagnosis, we can get treatment and medication. So there is also that.
Yeah.
But I don't think even then it means that we're just that.
Yeah.
We're all a product of our past. We're all a product of what's happening in the present and how we're handling things.
Yeah.
Even with, extensive diagnosis, there's always a cause. Sometimes it's genetic, but often it's from our history pathway.
Yeah.
And I think the interest in how did I arrive here? What's kind of, what has impacted the way that I am and the way that I respond to the world.
And it's funny because people will do those genetics things, right? People will do like 20, there's one called 23andMe, there's Ancestry. Like people are interested in how they got here.
Yeah.
But often will shy away from doing the work into how they got here.
Yeah.
Mentally.
Yeah.
Which is like another, it's like early in season 1 where we were saying like you go to the gym and you pay, however much amount to get your body looking.
But then what about thinking?
You don't do the sort of like mind gym. And pay to get your mind good. Yeah,
we think that we can get away without doing it, and I think looking back at our past can often be, incredibly daunting.
Yeah.
So we might either go, oh, well, everything was fine.
Yeah.
Or, I don't go there. Yeah. We find a way not to look back.
Yeah.
And it's so rich when we can get there.
Yeah.
It is. And I think it informs so much of our understanding about who we are. Doesn't necessarily change anything, but what it does do is it brings it into consciousness. And the more consciousness we have around things, I always think about it as like, like a penny slot machine.
Yeah.
Which is, we might sow a seed, which is, I wonder if you can remember any times that you were like that when you were a kid. Or, no, not really. Okay. And 6 sessions later, it's like, then the pennies kind of dropped, and it's like, actually, do you know what? This is how I used to cope, or this is how I used to self-soothe, or So I think, however idyllic we think our past was, there is no perfect part. There is no perfect kind of experience.
Yeah,
everything has something in it that we can learn from,
that we can sort of dig up and
learn from and wonder about, how is it creating my behaviors now? How have I learnt to cope? And one of the strategies I've used to cope is this.
And out of interest, what would there be a common reason for people to self-diagnose that would be from?
I think there's a kind of public sort of drive towards it, isn't there? The language is being thrown around so much. I think that I think diagnosing other people is a really bad thing.
Yeah.
Actually.
Like, I think you're
this, or even trying to make sense of someone else because we aren't inside of who they are, and it can give us a really false idea. I think trying to understand yourself, there is help and merit in it, but I would just I would try to avoid labeling yourself
Yeah.
where you can.
Yeah.
Because I think, like I say, I just think it just limits you. It limits you away. But there might be things which are like, oh, I wonder if I'm that.
Yeah.
And have a look. And then you see some of the ways in which you can support yourself.
Yeah.
And some of those work. Great.
Can we do something that I think might be quite helpful? Can we do like a quick definition of what these buzzwords that are going around actually are?
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Think we can do that?
Yeah, I think we can do it.
Because I'm not sure what a few of them actually are.
Yeah.
But I hear them all the time.
Yes. Okay.
So I'll say them and you give a little
synopsis.
which
Okay.
is obviously impossible. I know that. But let's try.
Okay.
Because I think that might clear some stuff up for some people.
Okay.
that are
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So, what is gaslighting?
Okay, so gaslighting is basically when somebody plants something, a sentiment, a sense, a provocation about you that provokes a reaction in you. So it lights something up.
Right.
It's basically exactly that. It ignites something in you. So it's often somebody that knows you and will know that thing's going to light you up.
So that's what
in the wrong
that's
way.
not what I thought it was.
What did you think it was?
I thought it was like ignoring someone. No, what did I think it was? Like making the other person feel like they're crazy.
Well, it sort of is, because that might be gaslighting. That might be lighting that up, where it might go, you know what, Owen, you always do this. You always behave like this.
Yeah.
That's going to light you up, because you're like, either, no, I'm fucking not.
Right.
Or maybe I am.
Yeah.
And no one is always anything.
Right.
So there's an ignition there
Right.
to it. Or they might go, let's think of another example of gaslighting, which might be, but this, you did this before though, didn't you? This is a familiar situation that you find yourself in, isn't it, Owen?
So is it basically just like trying to trigger someone?
It's trying to trigger someone. It's using your knowledge about them, and maybe you don't even have that, but it's taking a broader understanding,
Right.
and it's igniting. And what that does is it deflects away from them. So they're igniting in you for a response, rather than thinking, it makes me feel really insecure and I don't feel good when Owen's really successful. So what I'll say is, well, you know, you always manage to find your way into these types of experiences or jobs, don't you? It's probably because blah, blah, blah. Right. And I might not say it in that tone.
Yeah.
I might do it in a way that's quite nice.
Yes.
But somewhere it lights up an insecurity in you, which might go,
yeah,
oh, maybe I do.
Right,
maybe
okay.
I don't deserve to
And then
be
all
there.
of a sudden you're not thinking of
what's actually happening here. So it's a deflection against the thrower. Let's imagine that the gaslighter is a flamethrower.
Yeah.
It's a distraction away from them onto you, which is going to catch on to something that's already might be a tiny. It's not live for you. Somewhere it has to be live for you to catch light.
Okay.
So that's how I understand gaslighting.
Right.
It's a really long, convoluted way about it.
No, it's nice. Cleared it up. Okay, next one.
Okay.
A narcissist.
I knew you were going to ask that.
Everyone says it though.
Everyone's talking about narcissism.
So what actually is it?
The way that I understand a narcissist is that ultimately they find it very, very difficult to see anyone or anything outside of themselves.
Okay.
So everything is driven by my self-generating thoughts, feelings, or needs.
Okay.
But I can dress that up as it being about you and about caring for you or about wanting the best for you. But underneath, there's a real deficiency in being able to deeply connect and empathize. Because all I can see is myself. Makes sense?
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Sort of. So, let's give an example of it. So a narcissist might say, something like, I can't believe that you're saying that, because you know that I always put everybody else first.
Right.
I never ever think about myself. How dare you suggest that I do anything other than that?
Right.
So what's happening there is I'm creating an image of myself. That's how I believe I am in the world, or how I wish I was.
Yeah.
So there's no chink in there to go, oh, do you know what you're saying might be right? Or, oh, I'm so sorry about that.
Yeah.
Or that can't be very nice for you. Really, I think the people kind of associate narcissism with a sense of self-importance or kind of a big ego. What I understand by ego is it's the defense. It's a wall of defense, or it's a line between your unconscious and your conscious. Having gaps and a weak ego in some way is really helpful, because it means that you can process your unconscious matter,
Right.
repressed feelings. When your ego is big and thick, all you are is this conscious place, which means that you can have a real sense of kind of high importance about yourself, which disallows you to see anyone else fully as they are, because you can't see yourself fully as you are.
That's so deep.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Because if I can't recognize my own humility, my own shortcomings, the bits of myself which I'm ashamed of or not connected to, how can I ever see those in others?
Yeah.
Really see them.
Really see them, not just call them out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
I think
that's cool. Last one.
Okay.
For today. All right. And this one is all I bloody hear.
Oh no, about you?
No, I mean,
generally.
I do think I have it. Well, I'm after this podcast, I'm worried to self-diagnose, but ADHD.
Okay, so ADHD is where we are often completely distracted away from the present. So it's really difficult to be just in the here and now. So what happens is you create so many different ways in which to distract yourself away.
Yeah.
So that might be your mind flits to the past, to the future, to an event that just happened, to something that happened like 20 years ago. Physically, you might be distracting yourself, moving around, doing 50 things at once. Imagine you've got 300 tabs open on a laptop and you're flicking between them.
Right.
That's basically what the mind and the psyche does when it's using ADHD coping mechanisms.
So ADHD is a coping mechanism.
It is a coping mechanism as well. It is also a disorder.
Yeah.
It's a disorder of your consciousness, ultimately. All of these things are in some way. So we could all find familiarity in that at times of stress and overwhelm. You know, when your mind moves all over the place.
Yeah.
That's how I understand it. And we might all have tendencies towards it at some point.
Okay. Nice.
Is that how you understood it?
Yeah, it is how I understand it, and all the sort of, I guess, the symptoms of it I suffer from.
What symptoms do you suffer from?
I can't
focus.
But
you have to focus for so long.
Yeah, but no, but then I read about like hyperfocus.
Okay, yeah, that's the thing.
And I definitely get that, like super obsessed with one thing, and I'll do that, and I can sit and do that. The rest I kind of like tune out from. I find it very hard to like face things, open letters.
Yeah.
I can't like what are the other one?
Opening letters, did you say?
I'm terrible at opening.
But that might also be because you don't want to see what's inside it.
Yeah, I desperately don't want to see.
Particularly if it's a parking fine.
Parking fines, or the brown envelopes when you're like, God, this could be
really bad.
This could be from the government.
Include a shot. Okay, I'm just checking that we got everything because I always get nervous. Symptoms of short attention span, making careless mistakes, appearing forgetful or losing things, being unable to stick to tasks, appearing to be unable to listen or to carry out instructions.
Yeah.
So it's basically having difficulty staying in the here and now.
Yeah. Like I'll take fish fingers out of the fridge. I'll take fish fingers out of the freezer and I'll put them on top of the fridge and then get the thing in the freezer that I needed.
And forget that the
fish fingers are on top of the fridge. So like, honestly, like my place is like the randomest things in randomest places. I'll lose the remote.
That might just be how you are, hey?
Yeah.
And also you've got a lot of things on your mind. But yeah, I think we're all a bit of everything.
Yeah.
Honestly, I do. I think we're all a bit occasionally depressed. We're all a bit anxious.
Yeah.
We all can have traits of most diagnosis. Not all, but most. I think they live in all of us.
Yeah.
But some come to the forefront quicker and more readily. And often they emerge as a form of protection when we're younger, honestly, of emotional protection. So, you know, it is risky for me to talk down this line, but, you know, if you had a particularly difficult childhood and it was really hard to be in the reality of what was happening for you, then the psyche goes, well, I'm just going to distract myself with all of these million things that I can distract myself with, because being right here, right now is so painful.
Yeah.
There we are. It's ADHD starts to emerge. That's my belief anyway.
Yeah. And if you're feeling like that, get in the therapy.
I think so. Start talk about it. Just start really, really trying to let it settle down into, let me try to understand myself a bit more.
Yeah.
And also what an incredible human you are.
Yeah.
How you've developed these skills to survive.
Yeah.
But now they're not useful to me anymore.
Yeah. Don't need them.
Don't need them in the way that I did.
Yeah.
So what can I do to relearn and kind of get some mastery over this?
Great.
Cool.
That sounds nice.
Sounds nice. And Teddy's chilled now.
It's so
finally.
To sleep.
I hope so.
He looks.
He's like conked himself out now.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Well, what a snoozy end to
I know
an episode. And lovely to see you.
Good to see you.
See you next week.